Tenko is a cute girl. That alone is more than enough reason for all of us undeserving swine to love her. But if you're some uptight, pedantic weirdo who is afflicted by some bizarre lapse in evolutionary biology, such so that you can't love cute girls for being cute girls, I suppose I can offer a little more. You see, she's also a hot girl. And I guess she's like, like a unique, novel, interesting character in terms of diegetic establishment of meta-narrative exploration. Couldn't think of any other buzzwords to shove into that sentence, so that's what we're working with. A lot of people have this misconception that Tenko hates men, like she holds malice towards them. The thing about Tenko is that there's a major gap between her emotions and her conscious beliefs. That's the core concept. In her head, she thinks that she hates men, sure. But through her emotions, her instincts, and her actions, she is clearly a heroic, kind-hearted, loving person who can't stand to see people suffering or dying and who wants to help anyone, any way she can. Tenko's hatred of men comes from stupidity and naivete. She blindly believes negative things that she was told about men without stopping to think about the logic of that, and continues on this delusional belief with confirmation bias tirade in her mind, making up with new shit, like coming up with all sorts of excuses and made-up reasons for why men are bad to justify her beliefs. This is tied into the ego aspect of the themes of V3. Tenko is super egoistic, and Tenko's pride over her beliefs is why she seeks this confirmation bias and makes up all the stupid shit and can't stop to think about the logic of what she's saying. Just like real-life extremist opinions on bigotry. Tenko's ideas on men feel the same as any number of conspiracy theorists and people that just believe in something and convince themselves of anything at all in order to maintain that belief. In a meta-sense, we're usually led in fiction to see bigotry in characters as the result of malice, most often like past experience, or maybe it's a story about manipulation from a higher authority that tells the common folk to hate or be afraid of some group, in which case the bigotry is not presented as an individualist trait. That fact, and from understanding Mahiru's backstory in Danganronpa 2, for why she's a bit pushy with men, leads us early on to assume that Tenko probably had some, really bad experience with men that colored her perception, and we'll learn about that later on, which is twisted when we understand that she's actually just someone who has been convinced of something stupid and has never in her entire life had any traumatic experiences with men at all. This naive ignorance also relates to another aspect of V3's themes, logic and emotion. People's emotional instincts override their conscious beliefs a lot of the time, in specific moments or as a long-standing, constant aspect of character. Take Saihara, for instance. His anxiety and his imposter syndrome is the result of his emotions trumping over his conscious thoughts. He even says to Kaito, when they're having this discussion, he knows in his head all the things Kaito is telling him are true. He knows that, but he still feels anxious and pathetic anyways. His thoughts wander into these negative loops, and he needs to find better ways to manage himself, balance his thoughts and his emotions. That's why he recognizes the mental health value of Kaito's training regiment, and Saihara tells Maki how it's helpful for him to stop thinking and stop worrying about what you need to do all of the time. Oma has difficulty balancing his villainous persona and his instinctive emotions, his feelings, He loses composure in certain parts of the story, so on and so forth. Tenko, in her sense of logic, in her conscious mind, Tenko is an asshole and a bigot, but her emotions override her thoughts, and she always does good things and always tries to help people and make them feel better. Tenko's emotions win out every single time anything matters. She never does a single bad thing in the entire game as a result of her conscious biases. She's never hurt anyone's feelings or anything. This is because for Tenko, her sense of logic is weak because she's really stupid, and her sense of emotion is strong. If she were to base her decisions and actions more off of logic than emotion, she would just flat out be a worse person because her sense of logic is a bad and toxic. Do you see what I mean? like, there's so much argument, like, conflict between, say, Kaito and Oma. Oh, you shouldn't be emotional. You shouldn't make decisions based on emotion. Just be cool and logical. Just be suspicious of everything. Tenko is a perfect example of someone who is better off being emotional than logical, because she's not smart enough to believe things that are good and helpful and understanding, but her emotions are very positive. Tenko's character is written around extreme emotion. That's her background and establishment. She started training in Aikido because as a kid, she was uncontrollably emotional. She had especially bad anger management problems. Aikido, as an art form in Japan, is all about achieving balance. That is the tenet, which is what Tenko preaches, expressing yourself and balancing your emotions. Express your anger, joy, sadness in equal measure. In this backstory, Tenko's emotions are not solely a good thing. There's something she has to learn how to manage. She needs to learn how to express herself properly without it being destructive. She has to train her heart to learn how to better control her wildly emotional soul. Tenko's difficulty in finding ways to properly vent her emotions and express herself is compounded by the fact that she's really socially awkward. In the first FTE with her, she fucking stands there glaring at Saihara and, like, trying to growl like a dog, and it's super weird. She's bad at communicating herself. Her thoughts are really often extremely bizarre and defy a logical thread other people can follow. She's really bad at flirting and gets embarrassed easily, and she just says a bunch of shit that does not fit the social context at all. She's also pretty self-conscious, and like I said, she has the weirdest fucking thoughts. Tenko is extremely childlike. That's how she's presented most of the time. She's super easily excited for things like a little kid. She's really innocent in her idea of how the world works. She's naive about how a lot of stuff works, and yeah, stuff like that. Tenko's excitability with any random shit kids would be into. Like magic stuff, goofy stuff, her blind belief in conspiracies like that, and her desire to add anything and everything, magic, sneak attacks, whatever, to Neo Aikido. The fact that she loves practicing a martial art just because it's really fucking fun to throw people. Her random innocent dreams, like in Chapter 2, she expresses a desire to, like, oh, I've always wanted to feel like a rich celebrity being pampered at a poolside. She just has these wildly different childish fantasies, and her motivations are pulled in a million different directions because everything gets her excited. She loves eating tasty food. She gets totally enamored and focused on it. She's a horny teenager who gets totally focused on her personal needs, and so on. All these completely disconnected motivations and sources of ego and emotion all contribute to Tenko's role as this emotional roller coaster. But they also make her feel like a more well-rounded person in the writing as well. It has tons of narrative benefits, since she has so many random little wants and ideas, not strictly tied to like one set of values or beliefs. And of course, there's Tenko's relationship with truth and lies in the game. Belief and suspicion. Tenko demonstrates a form of truth, of expression that isn't tied to the words that you say, the logic. Tenko lies a lot in the game, but she is emotionally very honest. Her reactions, her expressions, everything about her tells you exactly what she's thinking at every moment, even if the words coming out of her mouth are lies. In addition to the fact that she always voices all of her emotions the instant she feels them. Her words might contain delusions about men or whatever lies, but she is easily one of the most trustworthy people in the game because of her emotional truth-saying, her emotional honesty. Tenko's balance of emotional health involves her stating anything and everything on her mind. When something makes her angry, she doesn't try to repress it or bottle it up or do something where it'll explode later on or not communicate what she's really feeling. She just gets it off her chest right away. So she might yell an insult that contains some lie or delusion, but the intent is genuine. It is her genuine expression of anger, her honest feelings. There's nothing wrong with this. It's normal for social interactions to be clunky, you know? There's no fault, you know? There's nothing wrong. Tons of normal social interactions will make you angry, even if the other person didn't do anything wrong, even if you know they didn't do anything wrong, even if it's just a completely reasonable But it's also reasonable to express that anger, to make your feelings known to yourself and to others. You know, it's instead of just lying because it's not fair for you to be angry at them. Why do you think your feelings are entirely logical? Are about merits? Tenko says everything she feels. She gets it out there somehow, which also, due to her extreme stupidity and her childish fantasies and views of the world, leads to her saying some truly wacky shit. Now, humor is very subconscious. By the way, you know how you hear reviewers and they say, "Oh, humor is very subjective." That's a term, that's a quote a lot of people use. But it's always bugged me. You know, all appeals of media are very subjective. That statement has never made any sense to me. So I try to say humor is very subconscious, because that feels like the more accurate version of that statement. Anyways, people don't feel the same vibes from humor. We get that, but personally, I think Tenko is one of the absolute funniest characters in the DR series. Her lines are especially goofy, and she has that wacky incongruity shit that I just love. Her weirdness plays nicely off of her earnestness, too, which makes all the interactions feel that much more genuine and that much sillier, you know? On a meta level, the reason I like Tenko the most out of any character in V3 is that she's just a fun, cute character despite her completely alien presentation. You know, she feels like a character you have never seen before. She's just this weird character you can't put in a box with other characters because she's a very bizarre mixture of different tropes and ideas that don't usually get mixed. Like, how often do you see a well-meaning, heroic character be convinced of something bigoted and toxic in their mind, but rather than have something tragic happen out of a result of that, where, like, a good person ends up doing something evil because of their conspiracy or bigotry beliefs, but they're actually just like this righteous fucking hero who only does good. That's so weird. What media, what fiction do you see that in? This is the beauty of DR on full display, being able to just take this collection of, like, TV tropes entries and just fucking mix and match them around until you get this totally alien fucking thing, and then make it work so effectively, though, and so uniquely. Tenko is super cute from her childlike, excitable personality, super funny from all the weird shit that comes out of her mouth, and someone who feels satisfying to root for because she's so fucking cool and such a heroic person against all odds that would make you assume that she might be an asshole. Love her to bits. What a queen. Awkward, horny, bisexual queen. Most relatable thing in the world. I hope I have managed to prove that Tenko is in fact a cute girl. That's all from me today. See ya.